Here she is in the morning sun. Got the doors open today. It's a hot one. As you can see, I've been progressing along with installing things and adding details to the firewall. I've started installing some of the brake lines. So as you can see here, I got this Automech brake line system for the BN1. It's copper nickel brake pipes, and they come just in a spool like this, but they're already cut to size with the ends already flared, and they have the proper fittings on the ends as well. So what I do is here you can see I've got my original line here, and then I just bend up the new one to suit. I also fit it to the car to see if I can make it a little even neater than the factory did in some respects. And obviously I leave these little plastic covers in the ends to protect the ends, because my next step is I'll use this grease wax remover to clean them up really nice, wearing gloves the whole time. And then I give them a nice coat of this stainless steel rust paint, and it gives them a really nice original look of the steel lines. And I believe for the 5/16, the larger fuel lines, I'm actually just going to go buy some new steel line and cut them and flare them and bend them up myself, and they'll be the proper steel lines, and I can reuse the original fittings that way. But for these brake pipes, the fittings it comes with are like identical to the factory fittings, so I'm okay with that. I just got to change the color of the line, and that's fairly easy to do, especially with something that's going to live under the car its whole life. So meanwhile, I've been coming along with adding small details. You can see I got some Healey blue touch-up paint from Jetstream last week, so I was able to touch in the screws that are supposed to be body color. In a number of places you can see all these brackets, and with all of their original screws that I've put back in, and washers painted body color again. I was able to reinstall the original oil pressure line pipe that goes to the gauge, so it goes through that grommet and with the special brass clips that it uses, and comes through the firewall here. It does this little jog, another clip there, and then comes up the steering column here and into the back of the gauge. So that's my original one. I didn't do any more bending to it. That's the factory bends, so I was able to feed it back through again. I got the overdrive relay sticker put on, and yeah, today I'm gonna continue on with the brake lines. And oh, here's another thing I did. I made and installed the faux asbestos insulation panels. I had purchased a set that said it was good for BN1, but when I got it, it was nothing like the originals are supposed to be as far as the shape goes. So I decided to make my own. I got this, it's like a MDF board that I got from Home Depot, and just, drew it up and cut it on my bandsaw to shape, and then I treated it with this flame-proof, flame-retardant paint that I got in a little quart can. I just rolled it on, and the roller actually gave it a nice kind of texture effect to it, and hopefully it'll be good to keep this stuff flame-proof. It should. That's what it's meant for. So, but yeah, they came out really nice, and the paint, finishes in a nice dull flat finish, which is good too. So, yeah, I got those, and these, of course, are the special 1/8" thick washers that were used on these insulation panels, and they're not easy to come by, those 1/8" washers. And of course, most of mine original panels were missing, so with the hardware, so I only had about 3 of those washers left on my car, so I had to source those. I got them through British sports car specialists out of California. And what else have I done since I last spoke to you? I got the ground cable just attached and swung out of the way, so when the engine gets installed we can attach that. Yeah, and oh, I've started to reinstall these the bushings for the leaf springs. You can see I've got the inner one already in, and I'm just about to put the outer one in, and I'll show you my process. I'm just doing it using good old big C-clamp, and I use some coarse sandpaper to clean out the inside, get it nice and clean, get rid of all the paint thickness because they are a really tight fit. And then start with the inner one, and I actually use another one of those big, thick, flat, 1/8" flat washers. It fits perfectly on the other end, and just slowly clamp it down and work them in together. And it works really well. Here you can see I've got this C-clamp I'm using to install these rear spring bushings, and I'm using one of those big 1/8" washers to protect the bushing on both sides, and yeah, it works like a charm. Just take your time with it and slowly crank this down and work them in. And there you go, both bushings installed. And of course, once the bushings are installed, then you can insert the long grease fitting. And you just screw that into the back, and it comes through between those two bushings to grease the entire joint. Ready for the leaf spring shackles. Okay, next big step is the wiring harness. So before I get into routing this, there's a couple things that I've done that I want to note. So I want this car to last a long time. I want to drive it a lot, and that means rain or shine. So I wanted to protect everything. These are cloth wiring harnesses as original, including all the little wires and the outer braiding. So what I did, I masked off all the connector tips, kept them all protected throughout the whole harness, and then I coated the entire harness with this clear, flexible rubber coating. You just spray it on and it soaks into the fibers, and it's going to give it a bit more water repellency. And you know, the finished product, you can't tell it's on there at all. It's just, but it's there, and it makes me feel a lot better about the overall life of this thing. So with that done, then I went through and I marked where everything goes. And you can just follow a wiring diagram for that. I kind of know the gist of the Healey 100 harness by now, but just taped off, you know, this goes to the headlamps, and just marked where everything goes. Here's the fuse block, etc., etc. So first thing I've got to do before I start installing this on the car is I've got to feed through. I've got one of these original shape wiring harness grommets that go through the Firewall. These used to be available through Roger Moment. I somehow found one online that somebody still had, so I'm really lucky to have this. But yeah, I have to feed this through. It's got to end up right here on the harness where it goes through the Firewall. So this is the inner harness that'll be hooking up to the rear of the dash. So I think I'm going to feed that area through. I don't know, I've been looking at this, and it's either go from there or go from here, but there's a lot of big connectors there, so I think I'm going to attempt it through this side. So as it turns out, I've got to install this grommet the other way. I've got to feed both this line and the other line that are both from the front of the car. I gotta feed those through the grommet instead of the other way around, so that the lip of the grommet is facing out. If I tried to go backwards the other way, it would be a nightmare and probably destroy this lip, which needs to point out. So I'm gonna install some plastic around the wiring harness, just wrap it around to help it feed it through. It'll be a nice slippery surface, and we'll see how she goes. As you can see, I've used some of this plastic wrap, pulled it really tight over this bulgy section. I've just got to get the grommet. You can see I've already fed it all the way through here. Got all that through already. And this is the heaviest section along the firewall here. So I've wrapped it as tight as I can with this saran plastic, which will help it slide through. You just got to get it over to here. So there she is. We got the grommet installed, and harness is loosely hanging in place, and now I can just go along and install it with all the clips, which are already located. So I'm just gonna follow lots of photos of the original, make sure I get it all right. Here it is coming through the firewall here, and yeah, should go pretty smoothly. Okay, a few hours later and the wiring harness is mostly installed. I still need to get a bunch of single connector sleeves for joining a few of the wires, as you can see right here. Got to join that white and black wire, and there's a number of others that I need some more of those sleeves for, but other than that, went pretty well. I've got, you know, the voltage regulators all wired up, and the fuse block, and everything's pretty much wired in. Still got to put the dash in, but so here's where all the photos and research really comes into play. Throughout this whole process today, I've had my laptop out and just going through all of my firewall and wiring photos from my car, as well as a bunch of original unrestored cars that I have collected photos of, and just to verify the routing of things and orientation of wire clips and just exactly how things were done. And it really helps a lot when you're trying to do this properly. So you can see all my brake lines are in now. So I bent those all up this morning and painted them in a nice zinc color, and came out really nice. Being that they're under the car for the most part, I don't think anyone will notice that they're not actual steel. They certainly look like it. You can see I've still got to put, there's going to be some electrical tape that I add here, some black fabric tape actually, to join those two. It's a little detail they did from the factory. And here in the, here's the firewall. You can see there, flasher. Here's the overdrive relays. And for all of this, obviously I had my BN1 wiring diagram out, and you just follow along, you know, here's green with red and yellow, and just it's really easy to follow along and see where each wire goes, just following the wiring diagram. So coming along very nicely. Be soon ready to put the heater in, and then the dash. We can wire up the dash. So in the rear here, you can see if we go under the car here, you can see there's the the chassis harness going along, and it's wrapped in black plastic tape as original, and it comes up in around the axle here, and you've got a lead going to the fuel pump and one up to the battery switch. Here's this fuel line here, and of course a line going into the boot. Around here in the boot, see, here it is coming out. So here's the main feed coming down here, again still wrapped in the black plastic tape, and it comes in and clips along the rear here. You've got grounds. I had to obviously clean away the paint down to bare steel. I have a little Dremel with a wire wheel that helps polish that, and then I assemble it with a little bit of electrical grease just to make sure you got a really good ground everywhere there's a ground. Yeah, Dremel motor tool really helps to clean the metal away in those little spots. I use like a little triangular burr bit that helps grind the paint away in a localized spot, not create a big mess. And here we are coming along the back. These are obviously for the tail lamps and the rear license plate light. So yeah, one full day and the harness is installed. There's lots more ahead, but until then, I'm Geoff Chrysler. We'll see you next time.